Hey, looks like we're live. At least I hope we are. I'm Aaron Lopresti. Welcome to AaronCon 2, Day 2. Today is going to be similar to yesterday in that got another sketchbook order, so we're going to draw on the sketchbook. And by when I say we're going to draw, I mean I am. And then we're going to follow that up with a Spider-Man commission. I got a slightly different angle today because I've set my camera up higher so I can get a better, which I hope is a better angle for you when you actually view the art when I'm drawing. So we'll see if it works out. I've also cut the light a little bit, so we'll have, I'm hoping, less glare off the white paper, and you'll be able to see, there'll be more contrast, so you'll be able to see the line work better as I'm drawing. These are all big ideas and big hopes for today's show. From this angle, you might be able to see the hardwood floor I have on my studio here. It's actually fake, but it looks good, so that's all that matters. I really don't have much else to say, so let's get rolling. I hope some people have joined me. In fact, let me just check the screen and see if, yes, 2 people. Martyr Media, Ron Kahn. Charlie Ramirez is here. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Charlie. Thank you for joining. So I know I have at least 2 people here. So I've been trying to stall a little bit so we can get a few more to join in here before I start showing artwork and stuff. And everybody is jumping in. So Josh says, how's it going, Aaron? I say it's going well. Thanks for joining me. Eric Bennett is here. We're going to do a sketch for him in his sketchbook here shortly. But let's move this camera. That's trippy. You can see the screen. Okay, so we're up higher. We have a better angle. Hopefully our lighting is better. And we're going to zoom in. And the first thing I'm going to do with you is I did a couple of sketches since yesterday. So we are going to take a look at those first before I start new ones. Seems only the right thing to do. So I had a few commission requests, which I always take for, shows like this. The first one was from a gentleman in France who's paying some ridiculous shipping to get this, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Tyler Sexton says hello. I say hello back to you. Okay, let's take a look. This would be what some people might refer to as Red Sonja. Now, she's not red yet because I haven't colored her hair, but you can rest assured that I will at some point. I will post all these on Facebook and Twitter when they're completed, but that's one I worked on earlier today. Let's see if we can get her all in there. There we go. Something like, yeah, how about that? Well, that's not bad. Okay, so that's inked, but it hasn't been markered yet, so I'll be doing that, I don't know, later tonight or maybe even tomorrow. Then I had a request for a poison ivy. Thank you, Charlie. Adam Garland says, hello, Aaron. The family and I are all watching and waiting for Spider-Man. Okay, we don't have to wait too long, but you have to sit through a poison ivy. So we got poison ivy there, growing some green out of her hands. This is obviously a really old costume, but it's the easiest one to remember. So anyway, so we got those 2 done. Now, if you were here yesterday, you might recall this Space Ghost piece. But that's the one I did yesterday. Well, that turned out pretty strong. I'm very happy about that. And it's also been posted on Facebook and Twitter. So if you want a really nice shot of this or scan of it, check out my my pages there to see this in all of its glory. All right, so that's what I've been up to today. Excuse me. Excuse me. That's not Corona, by the way. That's something went down the wrong way. That's what we have water for. Refreshing. Okay. Well, This is what we call raw imagination. That's called an annoying cable connector that won't get out of my way. This is raw imagination's 20 years of sketches. It's a hardcover. I can prove that to you by doing this. And it has my name on it, which also proves that I did it. The interesting thing about this book is it actually has a spine like a real book with writing on it. Oh, there's a little drawing on the back. It was my daughter when she was very, very young. I had her pose for the face anyway. She attacks this gorilla guard in some weird sci-fi fantasy adventure that I never fully wrote. Anyway, so I'm offering these. I'm switching banners now. Let's see, there we go. This is these sketchbooks are $25, signed and numbered, limited edition to 750. You can also get a sketch, a head sketch on the inside front cover, well, inside, for the complete price of $45. That covers the sketch and the book. And this weekend, free shipping. So $45 does it. Or if you don't want the sketch, you can just get the book, and that's $25. So let's get cracking. Can you hear that crack? Speaking of cracking, because it's never been opened. This came right out of the box. Got some attractive, colorful end papers. But here is where we're going to be doing the hard work, right there, right across from the title page that has Conan on it. Now, this is for Eric Bennett, who's watching right now, and he had requested a shot of his own character. There's a lot of, oh, come on, is that as close as it's going to get? Okay. We have a lot of creator-owned stuff cropping up in the market. It's almost like we could be looking at another independent boom here pretty soon, just like in the late 80s. Those of you who are old enough to remember the late 80s, I was actually in college. And, you know, when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out and Dark Horse Comics first started up, and there was a black and white boom, and then it kind of rolled into an independent comics boom that helped launch titles like Grendel and The Rocketeer by Dave Stevens, and, you know, so a lot of really good stuff came out of that. So will it happen again? I guess time will tell. Well, you know what? It doesn't really look like you can see this any better than you could before. I'm doing this really lightly in a blue pencil, so I'll go over it in a pencil in just a second, because I know this is sort of annoying going, he's drawing on this white paper, but nothing's happening. Okay, enough of that foolishness. Okay, so I have the guy's reference. I have Eric's reference right in front of me on screen here. So let me get back to your comments. There we go. No, Eric, I don't need better reference. I got plenty of it, thanks to you. Roscoe Davis says, I have that book, and I appreciate it, Roscoe. Adam Garland says, Space Coast is awesome as well, Aaron. Thank you. Okay. I think I've acknowledged everybody, I hope. I've also created some new banners, like this one, just to entertain myself. So anyway, now that you can see. I knew it. Well, you know what? I really was hoping to get you guys a better angle. And I think we do have a better angle. It's just the camera's up higher now, so I can't zoom in as much. So maybe what I'll do here is I'll lower this camera just, oh, that's attractive, isn't it? Like, I'm telling you. There we go. It's like an earthquake, sort of. Okay. Let's go right there. And that'll give us a little bit closer. You really have to applaud the technical mastery I have for these video shoots. Someday, if I ever actually make any money, I'll hire someone to do that for me so they can stand there and kind of direct this while I'm drawing. Okay, here we go. Try and keep my head out of the way, but I'm not making any promises. This is a stoic Russian character called Steel Wolf. I hope I can say that over the airwaves here. I assume Eric's got this copyrighted, so. Okay. Russians always humorless and stoic, aren't they? Although Rocket Red actually had a pretty good sense of humor when I was working on him in Justice League International. So it's not all Russians, I guess, are stoic, but this one is. Dude's got long hair because he's been quarantined for so long he had no one to cut it for him. So thankfully, all I have to do is like get my head shaved pretty much. So I just pay my daughter $5 to, you know, cut it, and it really doesn't matter what it looks like. Yeah, let's move that eye a little bit closer. You always sort of figure the edge of the eye is going to be right, kind of straight up from where your nostril is. That's just kind of a basic rule of thumb. Of course, it's not, you know, steadfast and always true. You know, different looks that you're trying to get, that's going to differ. But just for a basic rule of thumb, is you don't want that eye creeping in over and above the nostril, and you don't want it too far back, or your eyes are going to be too far apart in your drawing. Again, that's not the law. It's simply a guide to keep in mind while you're doing this stuff. Now he's got a little, we call these goatees, but they're really not. They're more of a Van Dyke, isn't it? What that like small beard is called, with a kind of like what I've got, except I'm not as stoic and I don't have as much hair. Okay, let's see what we got here. Eric's smiling faces, so he's happy. Aaron Louviere, with that great French last name. Howdy, Aaron. Well, hello, Aaron. John Smith found me. He's, your big head. So he knew it instantly. Court Carpenter's joined us. Hi, Court. Hey, finally caught one live. Excellent. Flaff Fox Pro is here. His hola greeting. Okay. I'm trying to include everybody. So. Don't really know what this dude's powers are, but he's got a whole sheet of him. I don't know. Eric, do you use this guy for gaming, or is it, do you have a comic book in mind for him, or is this just a gaming guy? Because a lot of guys come up with their own characters and shows and ask me to do, commissions of their characters, and a lot of times they're used for online gaming and stuff that they're doing. So I don't know what your purpose is for this character. Okay, so now I got it all penciled in. I'm going to go in with a 0.8. See how delicately I'm touching this paper as not to crease and bend this here? That's a problem I created for myself. I'm not expecting pity, of course. I'm just pointing it out. Oh, there's my head again. Sorry. got to figure out a better way to do this so I'm not encroaching on your picture and I can still see what I'm doing. Eric Bennett, he began life in the old Marvel RPG back in the 80s. Okay. So he's a classic character. We didn't even know it. How about that? Again, forgive my head if it keeps creeping in. It's hard for me to watch the screen and draw at the same time. It's one of my flaws as a human being. Well, one of my many flaws. Now, again, if you're just joining me, my voice just cracked. If you're just now joining me, I would love to take a second to remind you that you too can get one of these wonderful sketchbooks with a sketch inside, just like this, for $45. Post-paid this weekend only. It seems like such a tremendous deal that I just can't believe I have any left. Actually, sales on this have been really, really good. I'm really pleased with how well they're moving, considering I've only been able to go to one con this year, and that was Chicago, which is very interesting. They got that show in just before the panic began, and we shut everything down. And it was actually a very good show. It was a very successful show for me, and I think a lot of people. It was cold, though. Man, it was cold. I don't know why you have a comic book show in Chicago like at the end of January. It's still pretty much winter at that point. See, it just all sort of comes together. What a deal. Anytime you can buy Arnold Presti art, do it. That's what Roscoe says. And you know what? I agree with Roscoe. Although I will admit the Justice League pages have sort of are going quickly. So I didn't, I'm not going to say I didn't expect that, but it's nice to actually be on a title that people read. I've spent half my career working on books that no one's ever heard of. I've been fortunate enough to work on, things like Planet Hulk, and I had a really healthy run on Ms. Marvel and Wonder Woman. Although Ms. Marvel, no one really, but when I was working on her, it wasn't that big of a deal because she hadn't become Captain Marvel yet and hadn't, had the movie. But, she was still a popular character. So I still get a ton of sketch requests for that character, that and Wonder Woman, which oh, Kim Otomo. That's got to be right? It's not Otomo, it's Otomo. It says, love you, Aaron. That's very kind. Thank you. Thanks from Castle of Games in Springfield, Oregon. They'll get a plug in there for you, Kim. Castle of Games in Springfield, Oregon. I'm going to assume that you're also a comic shop and not just a gaming hangout. And I really hope we get to open stuff back up soon, because I know it sucks for you guys that, especially if you have gaming in your store, that's something you can't really do right now. Adam has seen me multiple times at Bedrock City, and cons and sketches are amazingly priced considering the great work he does. Well, thank you, Adam. Josh Gormley's there plugging Damage for me. That was a fun book. It really was. When they contacted me about doing that, I was like, great, they're giving me another book that's going to get canceled. Well, and it did, but I figured it's going to be a real dog assignment, but I took it because, well, got to eat, right? And I really enjoyed it. Robert Venditti did a terrific job with the scripts. We had a lot of fun working on that book. In a lot of ways, it was like a Hulk book. And it's really starting to get into it. We were having some fun, and it's too bad it didn't last past, I think we got 16 issues out of it, which I guess in this day and age ain't bad. Oh, Kim's bought some of my pages from me directly. Well, thank you, Kim, and I appreciate you saying that about me. That's very nice. I really do appreciate that. I've known some people in this industry, professionals, that are real jerks, and I never really understood why. Um, we're not saving humanity. We're just a form of entertainment, and to have a attitude or something about that is just mind-numbing to me. It doesn't make any sense. But there's a lot of really nice guys. I don't know if any of you have ever had the opportunity to meet Mike Plug. He's just a wonderful guy. And Michael Golden is a good guy. Walter Simonson's a wonderful guy. There's a lot of good guys out there. This turned into kind of a fun drawing. I never know what to expect when someone wants me to do their character, because you don't have any sort of recognition with it. It kind of takes a while to sort of warm up to the idea of doing something you've never seen before or completely unaware of, but kind of getting into it. Which I'm sure Eric is glad to hear, since I'm drawing in his book. Last thing you want to hear is me going, oh, I don't want to do this, man. This really stinks. Well, whatever. Often people ask me what my favorite character is and to draw, and it's really become, most of the time, whatever I'm working on. And it's funny how that happens. I used to hate Booster Gold until I started drawing Justice League International, and he became one of my favorite characters, because once you start drawing him, you start getting into the character, and you just develop a whole different appreciation for a given character. And so, if you're ever working on a book and you hate the character you're working on, it's pretty hard to do a good job. And I've been in that situation before. But even when I was, let's say, do something like Amethyst, which I wouldn't have necessarily expected to be something I would fall in love with, but man, I did. That was a hard book to do, because it was so much designing, and everything in that book was brand new. So I had to design everything. I was doing it practically per page. I was designing new, landscapes and cities and costumes and characters. So it was a lot of hard work, and it was shot from my pencils, meaning that it never got inked. So I'd have to do these super tight pencils, and then would scan those, and then they would go directly to the colorist and he'd color my pencils, and they print it that way. And it was really hard work, but it turned out to be really rewarding, because I never really fancy myself as much of a designer. And so I really challenged myself to do that in that book. And I thought, there's hits and misses all the time when you're designing stuff, but I thought for the most part it turned out pretty well and made me better at something that I didn't think I was very good at. Let's get up here so we can see this guy. And so if you try, you can always find something positive on whatever you might be working on that can kind of motivate you to do your best work. Right now I'm working on Justice League, as it says on the scroll there. And so it doesn't really take much to get motivated to do a good job on that, or at least to try and do a good job on that. But sometimes it does. So the Justice League stuff I'm working on right now, they're on some alien world, and I have to design all the aliens, all the landscapes again, all the cities, and the tech. It's been challenging, but incredibly rewarding, because on every page you're drawing, Green Lantern, or you're drawing Superman or Batman or the Flash or Wonder Woman. So You can't really complain about that. Pretty much got all of DC's heavy hitters in one book. All right, how about that? Let's, oops, sorry. There's Steel Wolf. Yep, so for just an extra $20, you can get one of these in your sketchbook if you so desire. Okay, Eric says he's loving it so far. Good. Because if you don't, then I'm kind of in trouble, since it's for you. All right. Let's sign this baby. Just kind of authenticate it. It's funny, not all my signatures are the same. I mean, I try to make them the same, but you know, depending on what angle you're holding the pen or the pencil, you never know what you're going to get. I have to, speaking of getting, I have to get my nice little DC Batman book. See what number this is. This is 119. Got a Gladiator Hulk a guy wants too, but I'm not going to do that right now because I'm moving on to Spider-Man. But so this is 119. Get that eraser stubble out of there. There's my annoying cable again. So lucky number 119 right there. Give you another shot, parting shot there of the Steel Wolf from the good old 80s. You know, it's funny, Roscoe Davis is asking, as a barber, I wonder if superheroes would have their own barber on call. There should be a superhero barber. You could have the superhero barber shop, right? Where all the superheroes go and get their hair cut. Except Superman, I don't know how you do that. It'd be like a laser or something, wouldn't it? You know, Paul Newman used to get his hair cut once a week to keep it exactly that same length, so he always looked the same. That was interesting, I thought. Oh, Eric, thank you so much. Well, thank you. Do you have those new aliens in text approved by DC? Yes. It's usually a short approval process because we really don't have time, you know. So a lot of it I'm designing on the page. I had to design the aliens, pardon me. I had to design the aliens before we started, but then like if there's a ship or something, I just do it on the page, and then if they don't like it, then I guess I change it. But 90% of the time, there's not like, oh, that's terrible, because what are they going to say? They don't know any more than I do, unless I just really, you know, do something horrifically stupid, which I don't think I've done yet. I'm going to try and get that cable out of the way once and for all. All right. Okay. You might see I kind of knocked in a real light blue idea of what I want to do for Spider-Man, because it was in my mind last night, so I just knocked it on there really quickly so that I wouldn't forget. And we'll see if it actually turns out. But I always start with the head. Okay. Spider-Man has always been, there's two characters for some odd reason that have been challenges for me every time I draw them. And Spider-Man's one of them, even though I grew up reading Spider-Man. It's like my favorite character growing up. But I don't know why I had, it's because his body is so, he's always doing like weird, he's always in weird positions and stuff. I mean, we kind of got that, Ditko started that whole idea of him bending all over the place. And I don't know. Do you draw him really skinny because he's a teenager, but now is he older than that now? Or is he back to being a teenager again? I don't know. For a guy that should know a ton about Spider-Man, because like I said, it was the one book I consistently read growing up. I just always struggle getting a handle on him. And the other one is Batman, which I may have mentioned before, because I can't ever. It's like Batman is so. I mean, talk about the definition of stoic. It's like you can't imagine him ever smiling. Although that one time where he smiled in the Killing Joke at the end, after the Joker told that joke, and then they both kind of started laughing. But I thought that was really appropriate time for him to be smiling and laughing. And you never want to show Batman afraid, even though they used to back in the old days. He'd always have these covers like, Batman terrified or whatever. Excuse me, Adam's happy he could give me the difficult sketch. Well, someone's got to do it. But yeah, so I've always just sort of, I'm never 100% sure if Batman looks, when I draw him, if he looks tough enough, if he looks mean enough, if he looks the right way. And it's just them and Spider-Man. I just don't know. The Hulk is really easy for me. I finally figured Superman out on this run on Justice League. I think I've got him down. I've never had a problem with either of the Green Lanterns I always felt their kind of character was very clear to me, but again, as you can see, I'm not really doing a stick figure layout of the figure. I'm just sort of creating the shapes that are creating the anatomy. I probably mentioned this before, and I don't know if it was which video it was, but in the book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, John Buscema actually sort of discusses the two ways to lay out a figure, and one of them is, doing the stick figure and then kind of building that up into your drawing, and the other one is kind of the scribble technique, where you just kind of scribble your way to create the figure, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. I think it's time to switch banners, isn't it? I'll do that one. Okay. The thing when you're doing, essentially what I'm doing is a convention sketch, or similar to what I would do if I was at a show, and you don't really have time to sort of step back and look at your work. Say, I'm going to put this down for a couple hours and come back to it, see if there's anything that I noticed that I don't like about it. You sort of have to kind of get it right the first time, because you're doing it in a short period of time, usually with someone watching, in this case several of you watching, and and you've got other people waiting, so you got to get through one sketch so you can get to the next one, so you can get everybody's done before the end of the show. So it's much harder to maintain a level of quality at conventions. not saying that my sketches I do at conventions suck. I would never say that. But I'm just saying it's more incumbent upon you as the artist to kind of get it right the first time. Which I guess in a lot of ways we have to do on our pages anyway, because most people don't have the luxury of drawing their page and then, saying, well, I'm going to let it sit overnight or let it sit here for a couple of days and then I'll go back and look at it and see if I can improve it at all, because we just obviously don't have time. Ryan wants to know if I'm taking any requests for commissions in the near future. You can email me, Ryan. Not for the immediate future, but probably in the not too distant future, if that makes any sense. Because I'll probably do a live feed in June or maybe one in May. What month are we? I don't even, it's April. Okay, so yeah, so I'll probably do one in May, which I may take some. It just depends on the work schedule, but I have a home list, and there we go. There's all my contact information. So I'm always taking commission requests. It's just a matter of how soon I can actually get to them. But like I said, if you want to contact me, you can contact me through email, or if you're on Facebook or Twitter, you can message me as well, and I can give you the details. Spidey's eyes are always kind of depends on who draws them. I mean, I used to be a big Romita eye guy, because he was, even though I grew up reading Ross Andrew, I was buying back issues at the same time. I was, reading the current stuff, which would have been, I started reading Spider-Man off the newsstands in probably 1974, 75. And let me put this so it's a little bit in more proper perspective so you can see what's happening here. Actually, I think he's a little too long-waisted. See, that's what I'm talking about. Now I got to fix that. But I really dug Romita's stuff when I was reading all the back issues, trying to catch up with, what was going on. And of course, found out the tragic death of Gwen Stacy, who was a character I fell in love with just reading back issues as a kid. I was like, this should be, she's a perfect girl for Spider-Man or Peter Parker. So it was really ticked off when she got killed. And I never thought Mary Jane was the right girl for Peter Parker. But what do I know? I know that I don't like the Spider-Man head quite like I've done it, so we're going to repair it. As Adam watches and cringes, that's my sketch he's erasing. So anyway, I've kind of evolved into doing a sort of spidery eyes that are sort of Romita-like, but bigger than what Romita would have drawn them as. I don't know why. I mean, maybe some McFarlane influence, although his eyes on his Spider-Man were just enormous. But I try and keep up with what, how people are drawing them, and because I don't really read the comic anymore. In fact, when I say I don't really read it, I mean I don't read it at all. So I have no idea what's going on. Sadly, I don't really read that many comics, period. I don't have time. I think the last thing I read was Savage Avengers, which I actually thought was pretty good. I was surprised because I thought it would be really stupid, but it really wasn't. It was really good. I only got through the first 5 issues, and I need to read more, but I've really never been a big reader. I mean, comics were I think I've read like 3 novels my entire life. Read a lot of screenplays. A lot of screenplays. So I just kind of fancy myself as an entertainment writer. Not, I could never write a novel or something like that, but I can write scripts. I may not be any good, but I can at least write them. Okay. I think we're getting someplace now. I think we are. Let's see. Yeah. I have to take a look at this and make sure I'm not doing something stupid. Always on the verge of doing something stupid, but I'll try and catch myself from doing something really stupid. That head a little bit bigger. All right, well, you know what? I think we're on to something. I think we're on to something big. Yeah, see, Court, I'm the same way. I prefer the old style Spidey eyes, but I said I get accused of being old fashioned as an artist too much as it is. So I'm sort of self conscious about that. I'm like, I'm really not an artist that goes in and sort of reimagines characters. I kind of, because I'm so tied to them in their classic sense that I don't like to go in and mess with them, because I kind of like to recreate them as I remember them as a kid, which I guess isn't necessarily the coolest way to do things, but it is how I function, for better or for worse. Because I do like some of the guys that, go really nuts, like Humberto Ramos, I think is, stuff is kind of fun. I should come up a little bit. I just did a quick measurement of the lower leg there, because I want to make sure that they're at least reasonably close to the same size. I got to move this knee up a little bit. I'm going to be doing a little bit of, how should we say, maybe this foot's too back. Freelancing on the blacks on this costume, which is everything that isn't red. All right, so I'm going to have some webbing coming out of here, don't we? I did kind of adopt or whatever the McFarlane webbing, because I did think that was kind of cool, the way he used the webbing as a design element. And it was just kind of like outrageously all over the place. And I mean, it was silly when you think of it in terms of, reality, but, this isn't reality. So I try to get over that a little bit. And ultimately, what you're trying to achieve artistically, at least in comics, is sort of a cool factor, to your work, so that people notice it. You want more than just someone go, oh, that's nicely drawn, that's very good. You want someone to go, wow, that is really cool. And generally that doesn't have as much to do with how well it's drawn, but how unique or interesting your take on a certain thing is. And like I said, that's always been sort of my Achilles heel, because I'm such a traditionalist that I don't really, on these characters, I don't really think outside the box, because I don't really have any desire to see them look differently than they did when I was reading them. So, again, for what it's worth. That needs to be a little bit longer. This Spaghetti Woman was always a favorite of mine. Yeah. I don't know if anybody did that. Now, see, I know that before McFarlane, I know that McFarlane is huge influence. Michael Golden was a huge influence on his work, and I would have to go look back at, like, Golden did that Marvel Fanfare, the first couple issues of Marvel Fanfare, where they went to the X-Men and Spider-Man were in the Savage Land. And I don't know, I can't remember if Spidey's webbing was all like McFarlane was doing, if it was more traditional. Not to suggest that McFarlane was ripping anybody off, but actually that sounded like I was being sarcastic and I didn't mean it to. All right, so then we have our basic Spidey pose. Now we're gonna grab our 0.8 and switch banners and start inking. Actually, I'm going to take a drink of water. See, there's a glass. Pinky extended for, no, I'm kidding. Okay. Okay. Adam Garland says, can I get a shout out for Lilith Garland when you have a chance? Thanks, Aaron. Lilith Garland, Adam Garland. I'm guessing Lilith is either wife or daughter. And so Lilith, thanks for watching. I'm sure you're bored out of your mind by now, but hang with me. You'll actually get to see something cool when I'm all done. My daughter prefers me not to shout out about her on the internet. Actually, I don't think so. She probably wants me to. My 4-year-old daughter, she just lost it. Oh, Lilith, it's like you're on TV now. All righty. That was the one thing I think you could argue about Romita, or argue against Romita's Spider-Man, is he drew him kind of thick. And you want to think that, you know, the guy was in high school. He was when Romita took over, and even into college, you'd still be, you know, I don't think you want Spider-Man too thick. It's kind of counterintuitive to the type of character he is. But again, Romita was more of a traditionalist in terms of how he drew, which was something that I just really liked. It's interesting with comic artists, when you move outside of comic art fandom and people that really sort of get the language of comic art, and you just, you know, just the average Joe on the street. And, you know, I run into that a lot because, you know, my daughter's still in school. She's a senior in high school, but, you know, I've taken her to dance class and, you know, becoming friends with some of the other parents and things like that. You know, this is what I do is so foreign to them. And they would look at, you know, what something I would drew, something I would draw, and they would get it. You know, they'd be able to look at it and it would make sense to them because I draw in a way that, you know, it's not realistic in that sense, but it's, you know, it makes sense. It's not overly exaggerated or too wild, and they would look at, you know, something someone else do that was really super stylized, and they would just be like, I don't understand what this is. So it is interesting that what you can get away with within the readership and the normal fandom of comics, because the people in there, you know, they've usually been exposed to comics for a long time, and they understand the different art styles and storytelling techniques and that type of thing. Whereas, you know, the average person that doesn't read comics, they don't get it at all. If they look at something and don't immediately understand what they're seeing. So I'm really big with the people that don't read comics, which is not really what you want to be. You want to be big with the people who do read comics. I read this fanzine back in the 80s, and for those of you who don't know what those were basically magazines that were for fans of comics. And sometimes they were produced by fans. In the 80s, they became more professional in how they were being produced. But anyway, there was an article, it might have been Comics Scene or the Comics Journal, something like that. And they were talking to John Byrne, about, you know, why he was so popular. And he said, I don't really know. He said, I was at a convention though one time, and someone said at this convention, had, if I'm remembering this correctly, said that, you know, he asked the question, I don't know why I'm so popular, and I don't know why you'd ask that question to begin with, but or something along those lines. And somebody responded and said, because you draw comics the way people think they should look. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, I think that's, you know, Alan Davis's appeal. I think Alan Davis is that way. You know, he obviously has some Neil Adams influence in his work, and Neil is maybe a little bit more out there than in trying new things than most people. But, you know, you look at Alan Davis's stuff, and it's just so pleasant and well drawn to look at. You know, it doesn't require you, doesn't challenge you sort of to, you know, artistically, or to kind of look at the stuff in a different way, like say someone like Dave McKean or somebody, you know, would, or Sienkiewicz or somebody like that. But it's so nice and it's so pleasant, and I think that's why everybody kind of digs Alan Davis. I mean, he draws really well, and he is one of my favorite comic book artists. But I really think that sort of comfortable way they draw is one of the reasons that they have so much appeal, fan appeal. Kim asked me, speaking of storytelling techniques, who are your favorite writers to work with? Well, okay, before I answer that, Federico wants to know what pen I'm using, and I'm using it's called Le Pen drawing pen. It's just a technical drawing pen, and it's got 3 different languages on it, so it must be sold internationally. That would be my guess. I get these online through Blix, and it was, who turned me on to these? I'll think of it in a minute. They work really well. I really like them. I don't know. They flow a little bit better than the Microns do, I think, but that may just be, you know, personal preference rather than an actual factual statement. Okay, Kim, to answer your question, I have had tremendous luck with writers. And I know guys, you know, artists that just have horror stories about certain writers they won't work with. And maybe, you know, I go out of my way to get along with people, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I can't say there was a writer that I worked with that I was just like, just going, wow, this really sucks. How did I get stuck with this? There's some stories I worked on that, you know, I'd like, I would have done that differently, but it's not really a criticism as much as it is just kind of a subjective, how you would handle things, right? Because I do write myself, so, but I try not to go there when I'm working with other writers, because I know they have, you know, everybody's got different ideas about how they want to do things, and it's not to say that because I might have a different idea than someone else that my idea is better than theirs. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, it's just kind of a different take. I've really liked working with Gail Simone because she has always been super considerate of my personal feelings. I am a Christian, and so I have certain things that I don't necessarily feel comfortable drawing. She's always, for someone who, we differ a lot on opinions on different things, but for someone who you wouldn't think wouldn't necessarily feel the same way about things that I do, she's so considerate, and say, Aaron, are you cool with this? Is this, do you have any problem with that? And so I just love working with her, and Robert Venditti has become one of my new favorites to work with. He just does such a classical, the way he writes, is just, Dan Jurgens is the same way. They write fun, more classic feeling comic book stories. At least when I've worked with them, they have. And so those type of things, when you know how to write superhero comics, it's a lot more fun to draw than when you're working with someone that maybe is trying to take, the superhero genre and in a different direction that maybe is less exciting or is less interesting than, watch out for my head, than what that you would normally like to draw. But a lot of people I've worked with, they like, Aaron, what do you want to draw? Aaron, what do you want to draw? Hey, what do you think about this? And it's just been really, I've had really pleasant work experiences with writers. Even Brian Reed, who I don't even think is in comics anymore, back when I was working on Ms. Marvel, those of you who remember that far back and thank you, Andrew. That might remember that far back when I was working on Ms. Marvel before I even started at DC. I think the spider's too big. There was issues. There was a ton of issues with MODOK in them, and that was because Brian was like, "So, Aaron, got any villains or anything you really like?" I'm like, "Dude, we got to use MODOK," and he just cracked up. He's like, "Yeah, let's use MODOK," and so MODOK's in there because the writer asked me what I wanted to draw, and I told him, and then he listened to me. So, I didn't tell him, what story to write, but it's just like, hey man, if you can work MODOK in, and then MODOK became this huge thing. He was like in it like a lot, and was just a blast. And I kept all the MODOK pages from there. I sold everything else, which probably doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't have any. I have a couple Ms. Marvel pages, but most of them are all MODOK pages. And then we worked in Sleepwalker, who I also liked, if you remember him from the 90s. And he was in there, and so I've worked with Jeff Parker, and Parker's great. He really knows how to put together a superhero story too. And I honestly, I'm not mentioning obviously every writer I ever worked with, but I don't have anything bad to say about anybody I've worked with yet. Even people you would think, okay, that's not a good match, they just, it's just been a joy to work with. So I've been really, really, really blessed, very fortunate that I've been, that I've had either all great writers or writers on their best behavior, one of the two. So it was a super long answer to your question, Kim. Everybody's asleep. What do you say? Okay. Well, now we have an inked Spidey. Now, because Spider-Man is got red in his costume, I'm actually going to use some red marker on this. So he's going to feel like he's in color, even though I'm not going to do the blue. It's going to be gray, but I am going to put some red in here. And as a result, I'm going to do the webbing last. I probably should do the spider emblem last because I don't want the web lines to bleed all over the place. I'll be very careful when I go around this spider as not to make it bleed. But yeah, I do have a red pen. I have a bunch of gray markers and a red pen. And as I said yesterday, I'm just too stinking cheap to buy the entire set of colored markers. So that's why I do everything in gray. And also, the way I like to color, and I mentioned this yesterday, so if it's repetitive for you that were with us yesterday, are you willing to say what you will not draw? Yeah, I don't draw lewd stuff. I don't draw, I mean, I do obviously draw a lot of women, but I try to draw them contextually. You know, in other words, if it's like I won't do white queen in her lingerie, because if you're asking me to draw something or any character in lingerie, you probably have other ulterior motives for wanting the artwork than just because you like how I draw. So I don't really want to be a part of that. But so, you know, if it's an established character, you know, and I try not to draw women in suggestive poses. I try to draw them in, even Red Sonja, she's not wearing a whole ton, but I'm trying to draw her more as a strong female character as opposed to a sex object. And I know that there's, you know, it's hard to get around that when you draw a good looking woman with hardly any clothes on, that there's going to be some people that look at that as a sex object, but that's not my intent on drawing it. And that may be, you know, sort of a stupid gray area that I'm kind of avoiding, that maybe I shouldn't be avoiding, but I try to judge intent, you know, if that makes any sense at all. But I try not to do exploitive material. I mean, I've done some in the past and kind of regret it. And then my daughter became a teenager and started seeing, you know, I started thinking, you know, I got to be careful what I'm drawing around her. And so I try to be more careful in that regards. And I don't really, as much as I love monsters, I don't like to draw stuff that's like really gross and disgusting. You know, that's the weird thing with me. It's like, I'm a huge Wrightson fan. He's one of the biggest influences on my work, which you can't really see in my superhero stuff. But if you look at my Garbage Man work, you can see Wrightson all over the place. So when I draw monsters, you can see the Wrightson influence. But there's certain things like Mementos, for example, that poster he did with all the severed heads sitting on the, you know, the fence posts. You know, that kind of stuff I would never draw. You know, that's just too, it's too gross. It's too far over the edge for me. And the funny thing is, when I was younger, I did draw that stuff because Wrightson was a big influence on me. And I went and saw, I've always been a monster fan, but not necessarily a horror movie fan, but I did get into horror movies, you know, in my teenage years, you know, Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead isn't that gross, but Dawn of the Dead is pretty stinking gross. And, you know, that kind of stuff, I kind of went through a phase and kind of grew out of it. And I have no taste for that stuff anymore. But I do still like to draw monsters because they're fun. You know, I just don't want to make stuff that's really gross and disgusting. That just doesn't do it for me. If that makes any sense. So I'm a very weird, strange dichotomy of a person. This is turning into a psychology exam. Okay, let's get back to the art. But that's to answer Lex 74. That's kind of what you were asking. What am I willing to say what I will and will not draw? That's sort of kind of gives you an outline of who I am or who I'm trying to be. Johnny Fitz is here. Thanks, Johnny, for joining us. And I didn't put Kim to sleep because she's sorting comics, which that can put you to sleep as well, depending on if you're sorting some good ones or just like stuff you have a ton of and seen all the time. I just went through my collection and it was actually quite fun to kind of go back and look at what you've got that you haven't looked at in a long time. But I'm sure it's kind of a different feel when you're working in a store all the time and you're dealing with inventory. But let me applaud you for actually having inventory, because a lot of shops don't even have inventory anymore. I can't even buy old comics at stores anymore. Excalibur still carries them, I think, here in Portland. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little bit here with this black marker, some of the detail on the dark. TC Shen, Aaron, do you have a favorite Marvel character you enjoy drawing? Anyone that you asked me to do for a commission. Probably the Hulk, because he's this great combination of superhero and a monster. I do like drawing women characters simply because they're so easy to draw. And which is weird because usually the hardest thing to draw when you're a kid growing up and you're trying to learn how to draw, women are super hard if you're a guy, because all you ever see is guys. You know, you look in the mirror, you see yourself, and so then you try to start incorporating female figure, changing a male figure into a female figure when you're 14 or 15 years old, and it's not like you're sitting around watching, taking life model classes at that age. So it's really hard to sort of separate the masculine from the feminine while you're learning anatomy. But I spent a lot of time on it, getting it right, because my mom was very much a stickler on that. If I drew a woman that, too broad of shoulders or too, whatever, thin hipped or something like that, she'd be on my case. So she was my biggest critic, but she really helped me to get a really good grip on how to draw the female figure and draw it well. And so that's something I do. It's really easy for me to draw. And female figures tend to be more, they're more curve oriented, and so they're more flowing, whereas male characters tend to be more, how should we say, I don't want to say boxy, but it's just different, and you're tackling the musculature of the man a little bit more specifically than you are the woman, where the woman, it's more, you're more going after the form and not so much the muscular detail, where you are going after the muscular detail when you're drawing a male character. So, but to answer your question, man, I really went off on a tangent. Probably the Hulk would be one of the more fun ones. I like drawing oddball characters like MODOK and who else did I? Stuff that's a little bit more unusual, because really any superhero for the most part is going to be the same, with the exception like Spider-Man's a little bit different, but most superheroes are anatomically pretty much the same, and you're just putting a different costume on them. I mean, Superman's bigger than Batman and things like that, but so my favorite things to draw are not necessarily male superheroes. And I hate drawing tech, and that's why I love all the old Marvel characters, because they didn't have all this extra garbage on their costumes. They were all just they were just the human form with a skin tight costume on them, which is that's why I love drawing, is the human figure. I mean, that's the most fun for me. Have you ever read any Zot back in the day? Zot, I remember the book, but I haven't. I never really read underground comics. I was kind of afraid to. I did see a few. The Fabulous Freak Brothers, they're always getting stoned. I remember in every one of their comics. General Zod, I sold off a bunch of suggestive stuff, action figures, comics, etc. Once I had a daughter, it just changed how you view things. It's true. I mean, you may have suggestive stuff that you don't even think about, and then when you have a daughter, you start going, wow, this is really inappropriate. And you hadn't even thought of it. I had like a bunch of Gil Elvgren books and things like that, it was just like, it's not that he draws pinup girls, is he does them so well. It's just like the art of it is so wonderful. And yet you start looking at it and going, what is my, if my neighbor comes over or my daughter walks in the room, what are they going to think when they see this? They're not going to think the same thing I'm thinking. So I did get rid of those. That was painful for me. I got rid of all Dave Stevens stuff, which other than his Rocketeer stuff, which was painful as well because it's so well done. You're not really looking at it from that standpoint, but realize that other people might be. So, I try to be aware of setting a good example, which I don't always do. It's hard, but because you can't please everybody. But I'm a work in progress, like most of us. You can see what's going on there with how that black works rather nicely, I think. We'll hit that with some cool grays to fill that in after I get these eyes done. Well, if this was a show where you wanted to know what Aaron Lopresti is really all about, you just found out. We'll see how many followers I have on Twitter and Facebook after this. Okay, I'm going to leave a little highlights there in his eyes. Okay, I'm going to clean up these pencils. Then I'm going to do the red. Actually, I'm going to do the gray first, and then I'm going to do the red, and then I'll do the webbing over the top of the red. There are a lot of great old comic shows in Vancouver area here that I have a lot of solid stuff to comb through. Well, comic shows or comic shops? Court, I'm asking Court Carpenter. He says there are a lot of great old comic shows in Vancouver area here that have a lot of solid stuff to comb through. I assume you meant shops. I Like Comics is a great shop there in Vancouver. There's my little plug for them. I don't get out that much, so this being kind of shut up in the house is not that big a deal for me because I generally am anyway. And there's no comic shops even close to my house anymore, so I can't just like go frequent them and hang out. Well, not that I hang out in comic shops, but go there and,
Well, plus your wife won't let you. So.
That's right. And if Shelley makes an appearance, she hasn't shown up in one of my live feeds for a while, but she kind of dropped in on me.
The smart ass herself is here.
That's right.
Your mouse is...
My mouse is what?
Very low mouse battery.
Oh, that's no good. I'll have to plug that in.
Yard work. Oh.
Are you going to go do yard work?
No, that's tomorrow.
Oh.
Although I think we should pay somebody to do it. Just saying. I've had 4 back surgeries. I shouldn't be doing yard work.
I don't want anybody to think that I make her do yard work.
He does.
I just don't do it.
He won't feed me unless I do yard work.
I just don't do it, so eventually she has to.
Hi, Johnny. Hi, John Smith. Aw. Don't you have better things to do, John Smith?
Thanks. That's a way to make my crowd feel at home. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that the first job he got after meeting me was a Spidey job, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, here's a story for it. It involves my wife. So I take her to New York.
Warren.
I take her to
Sean.
I take her to nope. I take her to New York City with me, right? And I'm still trying to break in at Marvel. And so we went to the World Trade Center when it was still there. And there was this burger joint.
Oh, you're gonna tell him that I got sick?
Well, yeah, but
that's a great story.
You just ruined the ending.
Yeah, I got sick at Marvel.
No,
quite a memory.
It was pretty funny. So we get these, pretty big,
burger
greasy.
Guts.
They were gut bomb burgers, but they were incredible.
Hi, John.
And so we ate them out in the, below the World Trade Center, and so then we headed back over to Marvel because I was going to go try and sneak in and show my portfolio. I happened to know the lady who was the receptionist. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And so she would buzz me in even though I didn't have an appointment. So anyway, we get there and I sit in the lobby, and we sit in the lobby. And oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. We were on our way over, and we're in the subway. And Shelley gets sick.
I'm like,
and runs,
it's not good. It's
runs
not good.
Runs over to a garbage can and hurls in the garbage can in the subway. So everybody thinks we're like,
they just thought we were normal New Yorkers.
Yeah, these drunk homeless couple or something. I don't know.
Yeah, gut bump burgers.
So then we get to Marvel, and by the time we get to Marvel, she's like white and sweating, and she's like, I'm gonna throw up again. And so the receptionist had to buzz her in, so she actually got into Marvel.
So I got us into Marvel.
That's right. She's run, so I went in with her, and she ran to the bathroom and upchucked while I went and talked to some editors to get some work. So
yeah, but you got
you
Spidey
go on
before
camera for
that.
a minute?
I don't know. I'm looking really sweet today. Where's?
Look at how close we are. Whee!
Oh,
There we are.
gosh. Oh, I'm wrinkly.
Right? Look at that.
Stop! I'm crying.
Yeah,
you think you're crying? You should have seen
my
me.
bald head. Anyway, so there we were.
Oh, it's a bald head. Yep, it's one of my proudest moments.
That was good times, man.
What were we like? I was 25.
Probably.
Yeah, just like yesterday.
Couldn't even hold her burger down. I'm telling you, it was.
Now I can hold my burger and somebody else's burger too. Yeah, true love.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I didn't hold her hair while she threw up though. I was just kind of like.
No, that was my best friend in college.
Oh man. That was pretty funny. All right,
Yeah.
so
The Laughing Lopresties.
comedy shows over.
True love, yeah. You can't barf in New York. It's not true love.
Couple who barfs together stays together, right?
Well, then you're way behind.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to hit this with some cold zero.
Exactly,
right?
Johnny. It was so delicious the first time. Second time, not so much. Third time, even worse. Yeah, but
She's taking over the show.
you went to New York
Yeah.
the first month we were dating, and you got this Spidey annual, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see?
Well, that was the weekend I met Michael Golden, and he critiqued my work and sort of.
Crushed all your dreams?
No, he actually enlightened me to why my stuff sucked and what I had to do to make it better. And then I ended up getting a job as a result of it that weekend.
Oh, you never told me that. I thought it was me. Well,
No, I mean, it was just
28 years later, the truth comes out.
It was your inspiration from afar. No, I was staying with Renee Witterstatter, who was the editor at Marvel, and she was putting me up. And Michael Golden she was tight with Golden, and so she introduced me to him, and then he critiqued my work, and in a way that it sort of. I've decided to jump in and use a C4 here because this black is gonna bleed anyway. So if I use a 0, it's gonna look like a 4 because it's gonna bleed the black out anyway. So I'm just gonna go with a darker color. But anyway, Golden critiqued my work, and then I spent the weekend at Renee's working on sample pages, which I then took into Danny Fingeroth.
Danny.
On that Monday, and he hired me to do some Spider-Man backups, which was great for a while, but then he fired me because I sucked. And then I said, no, let me do some more samples. I think I got it figured out. And so then I did some more samples, and he gave me some more work. Was
that the annual? The hologram cover issue?
Yes. Because I was doing Spider-Man backups like Aunt May. Remember you helped me.
Which one did we ink in Denny's?
That was, you helped me ink that Aunt May backup story.
With Sharpie.
In
Denny's.
At Denny's restaurant in San Diego. So it was
after Comic-Con.
Yeah, it was after Comic-Con. I had to get that thing done. And so.
Was that the year we drove down?
Yeah. And so that
was horrible. We slept in the car on the way down at a rest area. We were so broke.
And it's not much it's not much different now.
No.
But
no. Now
so,
we have children.
Yeah, so that's why we're broke. But no, so we had to. I was inking this thing. I was doing the line work, and Shelley was filling in the blacks at this.
Because I have zero artistic ability. I can do calculus, but I can't do art.
Yeah, she's a math teacher. So, so I had to get it done that morning and into FedEx so they could have it by Tuesday. And so yeah, that's how that.
I think I signed somebody's.
You did.
Issue of that because you told them you had me sign it, and I was like, "Yeah, you don't want my signature."
They did. They had her.
I'm nobody.
That's when you used to come to shows with me.
Well, yeah.
And sit at the table. Now she comes to shows with me and hangs out at the hotel. But
gotta sleep when you can get it.
Yep. So, so we were at a show in Portland, and she was sitting there next to me, and the guy came up and wanted me to sign the book. So I signed it, and I said, she helped ink some of this. He goes, oh, well, you signed it too.
Yeah, no.
You did, though.
I know, but it was so uncomfortable.
It was funny. So there's one comic out there, Spider-Man comic, that has both our signatures on it.
Because the only thing I usually sign is like detention forms or something. But not anymore, now that we're in quarantine.
Okay. So I'm trying to put a little line work in here.
Does he have a mouth?
Spider-Man doesn't.
Well, that's the way the men should be.
Yep. Ooh, wow. Ouch.
Oops.
You can see, you can't really see
There's
it
his
that
crotch.
well.
What?
There's some line work. I'm putting some line. You can't even really see it, but I'm doing
Right
a little line
there.
work. Yeah, but it's not
There.
showing up
Oh.
there very well in the feed because I'm.
Oh, wait, let me see. I got to read some.
My
Yep, John, I
bandwidth-
hear it. Awesome story, art and love. Oh.
Is your grasp on perspective second nature at this point?
Yes.
If you ever get bored, I'll definitely tune in for perspective tutorials. Okay, you want to talk about a boring tutorial? That I should do one.
Well, they should know too that my master's thesis in graduate school was on the mathematics behind drawing in perspective.
That's true, and I illustrated it for her.
I got permission from Marvel
That's right.
to use the X-Men pages for my curriculum. Big hit. It was huge. But yes, so perspective, projective geometry, and non-Euclidean geometry.
Oh my gosh, you're killing
I'm such a geek.
You're killing my live
I'm
feed
such
to
a
talk like
geek.
that.
Non-Euclidean geometries.
But I would say it's not second nature. It's hard. Perspective's hard. But I should do a tutorial on it, and that's a good idea. Because I can only
It's hard.
do marker sketches for so
You
long.
tried to teach me how to see it for a long time, and then I finally.
I know how to cheat perspective because I know how what it's supposed to look like, but when you actually have to do it correctly, it's a lot of work. So
You saw him the picture you did on our first date.
has nothing to do with what we're doing here.
I know. I know.
I don't even know where it is. It used to be
It's
hanging.
right behind you on your table.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right, go get it.
Okay.
It wasn't our first. Was it our
Yes,
first
it
date?
was our first
Yeah, it was
date.
our first date. You're right. It was. There's this little French restaurant in Portland. I don't know if it's still there.
Le Montmartre.
And
Oh, I can't reach it.
they had,
Oh, where you draw on the tables with crayons.
well, they had butcher paper. They didn't have tablecloths. They had butcher paper over the top, white butcher paper over the top of the table. And so, and a box of crayons. So I basically drew her.
Altered for viewing pleasure.
No, it wasn't. You were young and 25, and now you're a beautiful 50, but you were a beautiful 25 back then.
Thanks. I'm 53,
Well,
but that's okay.
I'm trying to lie for you.
Okay.
So basically, I did this of her in crayon.
Isn't that crazy? I took it to school the next day and showed my middle schoolers, and they clapped like I had something to do with it.
There we go.
There it is. I had big old hair.
Yep, that was
Man, I got big hair.
90s hair.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So
Thanks, Vic.
we got that dry mounted, and
Yep.
And Warren's like, show the picture. I just showed the picture. I know there's a kind of a time delay, so you'll catch up. But
Big old hair.
yep. So
I still got big hair.
still got a lot of hair. I have no hair. John Smith says, I remember. Well, John, you've known us since the very beginning. In fact, I knew John before
Oh
I
gosh,
met you.
John, yeah. You've seen me at every stage of post baby 2, big hair. Oy.
All right, so we got Spidey grayed in, looking good. So now I'm going to go with the red, and then we'll do the webbing.
Color.
David George, yes on this last one. I have to hold on.
What?
Oh, someone's sending me messages on Facebook.
Oh, nice.
Well, it's just I'm getting messages all over the place.
See, you'd still have a flip phone. if
So I
didn't
drew that in
force you
what,
to get-
2008? I wish. It was 1991. It
That's true, John.
was 91.
And I'm sorry, your son is way too tall. It's like genetic freak zone. Although our Josh is pretty tall. And he's a total geek, like his mother.
Don't say that.
Oh,
we
he
don't want
is.
to. We don't want to. He still hasn't. He's still not married, so we gotta. He's got to
Maybe
be.
he's a
He can be a
geek.
geek until after.
He's a math geek like his mother.
No, he's a very cool kid. He's an engineer.
Yes,
He's
he
about as.
is.
He's about
See,
as.
John concurs.
No, he's.
Thank you, Court. It's a cute story, isn't it? And then we got engaged 4 months later, which I
Mhm.
told my daughter if she ever did that, I would kill her.
Yeah, we were also like. I mean, I was 28. It's not like we were like fresh out of college.
True.
We had been around the block and like we're tired of this.
Back again.
Yeah, I'm tired of this dating thing, man. Let's get this
Yeah,
moving.
engaged in April. See, first date in December. Engaged in April. Married in October. When your brother could get leave from the Air Force and I didn't have a volleyball tournament.
That's right. And then baby in July. So we just.
What's there? Do the math.
Yeah, we were just. And she wasn't pregnant before
No,
we got married.
No,
Just
I
right
didn't have to
after.
rope him in that way.
Right after.
It's good, babe. I'm gonna go read.
I thought you were gonna go do the yard work.
No, that's tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I already mowed
I
the.
know. Resurrection
grass,
yard
so
work
it's-
tomorrow.
It's more like weed pulling.
So John, hey, mine's not married either. Plays too much golf. Well, there's that. Joshua is just, I don't know. We'll figure it out, or he'll figure it out.
Well, he lives in kind of the middle of nowhere.
Ugh.
Works at a huge metals plant as an engineer, so it's not like he's running into people all over the place.
And what does he call it? The armpit of humanity.
Well, you shouldn't say that. There might be some people that
That's
are
true. But it's
not
the
his
town.
job. The town.
No, the town was where I actually was born in that town.
Well, there you
So
go.
there you have it.
You'll see I'm being very careful around the blacks here with this red because I don't want to bleed them out, and they will do it too, whether you like it or not. So I'm being very light and kind of spotty as I put this down so as not to cause black bleeding, because
That's the worst.
the worst. And if I don't press too hard and kind of splotch it down, it tends to blend itself a little bit nicer.
So if ever get to see you at a con, yes, the big-haired lady does the background.
Yep.
Oh, yep. So my theory is the bigger your hair is, the smaller your butt looks. So that was our theory in college. Big old hair in the late 80s. I still got big old hair. That is too funny.
I used to have hair.
Well, yeah.
Things change, sadly.
Yep. Big hair. Ouch. Well, there's the college graduation photo. Big hair. So we're looking at new doggies. Maybe. They're not born yet. She texted me. Wait, any high school photos to show?
No.
Oh man, I had the bi-level mullet in high school. We won't go there. It was bad.
I'm using my fine tip to go around the spider
I
emblem
draw
in case you're
cousin.
interesting.
So
Interested?
I don't have to work on my figure drawing. Cousin It?
I draw cousin It, so I don't
Yeah.
again. Well, see, but that's why
That's what my hair looked like growing up.
that's one of the reasons I like drawing monsters so much is because you don't have to adhere to normal anatomy most of the time.
No.
So it's a little less restrictive and a little more creative.
Yeah. I asked what my hair used to look like. So try to straighten it on an ironing board.
You did not.
I did.
Like ironing your hair?
Yes, this is before we had all the
Wow.
like now I have to straighten it to get it to behave. So back then it used to I would take an ironing board. Well, my hair
Wow,
was
that
past
must have
my
been-
butt.
That must have been hilarious.
Yep. had good old hair.
I got to get up early in the morning so I can iron my
Iron
hair
my
before I
hair.
go to school.
Well, my parents wouldn't let us cut our hair. So we had hair
It's
like
funny.
serious hair. So I would try to straighten it. And I was so jealous of all my friends that could put combs through their hair. That was back in like when you put your comb in your back pocket and you were cool. Not me. I put a brush in my back pocket because I was super cool. Good job.
So I'm just trying to get this red to even out a little bit. Although you're not going to notice whether it is or not, because when I put the webbing over it, it's going to distract your eye, so you're not going to see that anyway. But I tend to be a bit of a anal retentive perfectionist when it comes to some of this stuff. So
OCD much?
yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're getting there. You don't have to work around any spiders, so this glove will be a piece of cake.
Spiders? Spider web?
No, I meant that spider.
My bad. All right.
Wow, that was a period of silence when the two of us are together. You don't get very often.
Yeah, not very often. I could watch you draw. 28 years later, I could still watch you draw and go, what is that? Same with Sammy. So the daughter takes after him. The son takes after me.
Yep. So that means the son has a good paying job and the daughter will be hoping she marries well.
Oh, wait. I don't have a good paying job. I was a freaking teacher.
Yeah, but you could have had a good paying job.
I had just been an engineer.
You were smart enough to be a good paying job. You just chose to be a teacher.
Back in the 80s, oh my gosh, more embarrassing Shelley stories. Back in the 80s when they brought that up to me, I didn't know what it was. And so
she didn't know what an engineer was when they said you should go into engineering school.
Because I was a small little girl from Hillsboro, Oregon. So I thought it was the dude that drove the train. Why would I want to do that? And I only went to college to play volleyball anyway. So, yeah.
Went to play volleyball, came back with a math degree. What the heck?
And 4 back surgeries and
shoulder surgeries. You know.
And, yeah.
That's why you don't play college sports.
Yeah, no. I really like how you render the muscles.
Yeah, you know, Gene Ha does a terrific job of that with just the markers.
Yeah, John, you can imagine I was a bright one, wasn't I? I mean, shoot, my parents barely graduated high school. Who did I have to ask? And so I was like, well, Oregon State said you can't come back until you choose a major, and I couldn't major in volleyball. So
I don't mean to interrupt Shelley's story, but I just want to let you know that I'm using
that's all right.
A cool gray 5 here to get darken in some of these areas on Spidey's dark part of his costume.
You're so cool.
Even cool gray because I'm cool.
Cool. I wonder if we have any Sammy stuff we can show. She loves it when I brag about her.
Hijacking my video show.
Yep. My videos, yeah.
Yeah, Shelley does math videos if you're interested.
Only because I have to now.
Well, some people might find them more interesting than watching somebody draw all day.
I doubt it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay.
Well, they find us this way.
That is kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to show you my daughter's art project really quick. Her senior art project.
AP art.
This was.
Oh, look.
I know. The green one, there's a green screen on her, so I get a back.
Is that?
So this is green, and you can't see it, but these are like the fates, you know, from like Hercules. Different colors. Oh, the yellow one does it too.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well,
so they're different.
That's amazing. The blue doesn't though.
Monochromatic kind of this on canvas. I think she did this in acrylic. Yeah. Anyway, look at the bricks. There's a brick wall right
like, oh, Nice texture.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what she did, and that's one of her projects. So she does some cool stuff. All right, now I'm going to do some cool stuff. I'm going to put webbing on this guy, but I think I'm going to do it with a 0.5. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I'm going to test that theory out on something else before I do it actually on this board here.
She's downstairs watching the Muppets too.
Good for her.
18-year-old watching Muppets.
I raised her right. Okay, I'm going with the 0.5 because I'm afraid that the 0.3 is not going to be thick enough, especially when I lay it down over this other marker. I'm going to test my theory before I... Yeah, I think it's going to break up on me. So I'm going with the 0.5, and let's hope for the best. Jim Salicrup was the editor of these just before...
John, I know she's pretty good. I think she's going to go to Grand Canyon University next year because they gave her way too much money, and major in animation, minor in dance, since she's quite a little dancer. Third at nationals last summer.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a mom.
All right, I'm right in the middle of something here.
Okay, get it.
So Salicrup was the editor when McFarlane was on Spider-Man, and I was trying to break in at that time and not being very successful. It was before Danny Fingeroth. And he told me specifically, because I had not done the webbing right on Spider-Man's face. And so I learned that you go like, there's got to be this two like this that open up like that. Can you even see that?
Not very well. There you go.
Okay. And then the one line back straight like that. And then everything else flows out from that. So he was also the one that told me Mary Jane Watson had to have dimples on her cheeks and on her chin. And that was like, that was law.
She's part gazelle, that's for sure.
Oh,
Sammy.
there's that.
Oops.
No, I don't like doing the Ditko webbing, which is like a ton of lines. I like the bigger ones like Romita used to do again, the Romita influence. It's always so hard to get this webbing correct when he's bending all over the place. I'm taking special care to get these spaced correctly, because this is an actual video that people will be watching and are watching. So I have to act like I'm doing it correctly.
Great, the comments will be great. The art was great, but that chick was annoying. Well, she flies. She does, John. She does fly when she jumps. It's amazing. But only got to do two competitions this season.
Yeah, for they canceled all of them. It's very unfortunate
really
for her senior year.
Yeah. And they're not going to do prom or graduation till July, which is kind of sad.
Okay.
At least they're doing it.
That's true. It's always a crapshoot on his neck with these lines, but all right, so we'll do little connectors in between there. This is always the hardest thing, is to get this webbing to look good.
It's almost like less is more.
Yep.
Nice.
Ta-da! Yeah, it worked.
So remember our first San Diego? Yeah, you had prints that you would color.
Yeah, I used to hand color prints. Not very well, I might add, but
yeah, you did. Yeah, this kind of sucks right now.
Not the artwork, Aaron. Yeah. I would hope not, John. If you're gonna tell me my stuff sucks, don't do it on air.
That's funny. I remember I was feeding you as you were coloring, so you would eat. Good old Artist Alley.
That's right, workaholic, man. It's expensive to go to San Diego. You have to do a lot of work to pay for it.
Especially now.
Yeah, it's really expensive now. So I get a booth every year, for those of you who don't know. That ain't cheap. Although unfortunately, I'm kind of feeling like they may cancel it this year. I would go, if they had it, I would go. Although I might be the only one.
No, just wear a mask.
Of course, if only half the people go to San Diego this year, if they still have it, I'll be able to walk around on the floor without getting crushed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Hand color prints is kind of neat. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a way of doing, the hand-colored prints was kind of a way of doing original artwork without doing original artwork, because people didn't necessarily really want my sketches, because they didn't even know who I was when I was doing that. So it was like I had, I'd do a Spider-Man print or whatever, black and white, on some fairly thick porous paper. Then I would use markers and I would, hand color the prints. And so I made my money that way. It was a lot of work, though. Yeah. I can tell you that.
And you didn't charge very much for them.
No, it was like $15 or something for a hand colored.
Yeah. And then the second time I went with you, we had Josh.
Yeah, I did a little.
I spent the whole time in the bathroom.
That's right. She was sick again. No, you were sick.
Yeah, I had E. coli. Ooh,
so I was holding the baby.
E. coli with a colicky baby. Ooh, good times.
Well, you went to the bathroom to throw up a couple times, and I had to hold Josh while I was sketching. So that was exciting. Yeah.
Well, see, by then he was
not
weeks old.
Yeah, he was only a couple weeks old. Yeah. We did not stay home from San Diego. We gave birth to, when I say we, I mean Shelly gave birth to our son.
Yeah, it was that big of a deal.
And then 2 weeks later, was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, we're at San Diego.
Well, we moved into our first house 4 weeks postpartum.
Yeah, right when we got back.
Because I didn't have to do anything because I had my C-section.
All right, so there's all of our linears, and now I'm going to put my webbing in, and let's all hope for the best.
So all of it loops towards his head.
Well, yes, but depending on which way he's holding his glove or his arm or something, it kind of changes directions, and sometimes I cheat because it doesn't look good going the other way. Like if you curve down, it doesn't look good. So I always try to make sure that it's curving up, even if it shouldn't be, based on how he's positioned. And that sounds kind of strange, but if I get into a circumstance here. Ta-da! There we go.
Yeah, still have mine. Oh, John. Someday it'll be worth money. Doesn't usually happen like after somebody passes, though.
Yeah, that's right. Get away from me to die. It'll actually worth money.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, so here's exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've got these going like this, right, rounded up this way. But if you do it on his glove that way, it doesn't look good. So now, because the curve is going this way, right? Whereas this way, the curve is going this way. So I'm going to do it like this.
So it's almost towards the motion.
Yeah, so as you can see, I'm doing it kind of upside down. Now, that's that way. If I turn it like this, I'll do it that way. But since I'm doing it upside down, I have to do it backwards. People used to complain when McFarlane drew Spider-Man because when he had like small shots of Spidey, he wouldn't even indicate the webbing. He would just leave it red. And boy, I tell you, after doing some of this, it's kind of like I don't blame him.
Looks like the black was the BWS.
Yes.
Black with stars.
That's right. You put BWS in the black areas, so the inker will fill it in as black with stars. And of course, the joke became it meant Barry Windsor Smith. And
who was the guy that would do that like on a big page?
you want me to throw? You're whispering like they can't hear us.
It's a big secret. The webbing's looking amazing. Yes, Mr. Clean. What do these call you? Razor?
Well, that was a joke. Because my
It's
pencils were
nice.
so sharp. I don't know, something like that. That's
No,
right. It
your
was a
wit.
joke.
Your
It
wit was so sharp.
I think Clyde Nee gave me that
Yeah.
nickname, the Razor. Okay. Doing this webbing is almost like a math problem.
No, I don't hear any crying, so it's not a math problem yet.
I'm about to start. All right.
John, we're right here. We're just having a conversation. Don't mind us.
Hey, who was that guy who used to put all the black in his work so he didn't have to draw anything? All right, I'm going to outline him with this 8 again to kind of thicken up my holding lines or my contour lines or whatever you want to call them.
Why didn't you do that originally?
I did, but when you put markers over the top of it, it dulls it.
Gotcha.
So I go back over it.
No, somebody was wondering, so I thought I'd ask.
Were they? Did they actually ask that?
No.
Okay.
But I bet they were thinking it. You were thinking it, right?
Well, I always
help me out.
Help me
out.
I always explain it every time I do it. So, Adam, I hope your kids stayed awake long enough to witness this. Oh, you know what? I didn't put the webbing on his neck. I'll have to get to that in a minute.
Thank you, Kim. Exactly. Thank you. And when I had my own classroom, I would put up posters of his work and really upped my street cred.
She'd take those San Diego bags too and hang them from the walls.
Thank you, Warren. Yeah, I have a cage now with all the physics stuff in it, and I hung San Diego bags on it and monkeys. Not that that go together, but it was just what we did. Oh, look here.
We are hanging on every line. She's trying to copy your work. Oh, that's sweet.
What's her name?
It's Lilith, right? I hope I didn't just screw that up. It's been a while since we said it. Okay.
Around.
Yeah. That ledge up there is
Lilith Marie.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Lilith Marie, I am saying your name on TV again, and you're a star once again.
Beautiful. All right, Lilith, how old are you?
She's 4, I already know.
No. Oh my gosh, that's my favorite. 4-year-olds and high schoolers.
There's really not that much difference.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we got that. I gotta remember to do that on his neck before I forget. All right, groovy. Okay, so I've got to do his webbing.
She's 4. Oh
I know.
my gosh. That's the bestest one.
Okay, so we're going to go over with the warm 0, warm gray 0. You can tell by the squeaking it's starting to run out of ink. But not until I'm done with this.
Squeeze every bit of it out.
And then maybe we'll grab a 2, perhaps.
Perhaps. Ovaltine, perhaps.
Oh.
She wants her Hulky after this one. Oh, Lilith, you're too cute.
Well, she needs to get some Hulk hands.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know if they still make those or not, but these big foam rubber Hulk hands you put over your fist and you bang them together and they make crashing noises. My son had those, so those were like at least 15
We
years
lived in
old.
Florida, so he was
Yeah.
like 9.
Yeah.
He's 26 now.
Yeah. So 15
But
years
Sammy
ago.
would sneak into his room and grab them, and they went all the way up to her armpits.
Yep.
And then she would bang them together and rah.
Which always ticked him off because what is she doing in my room? Stealing my stuff?
Well, especially when she erased his entire Xbox.
Yeah, he wasn't too happy about that.
That was a bad day.
I don't know how you can do that with one push of a button. I couldn't do that if I tried.
No, she just pushed the right combo.
Yeah.
Should have had her pick lottery numbers that
Yep.
day.
All right, so now I'm going to go outline him with a warm gray 4. I do this kind of, I don't know why I do it. I do it because I like the way it looks. It's sort of.
See, a lot of people wouldn't go this.
Oh, you get your money's worth.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of grounds the character for me. I don't know. I like it. Solidifies it, makes it look more finished.
Your head's in the way.
Oh, sorry. Need the head police to.
There we go.
Okay.
If I'm working the camera.
I know, that's what I was afraid of. So my daughter won't. She won't do anything unless I pay her.
She's got to make her college money.
I'm making her college money right now.
That's true.
Okay. I will outline the webbing. I didn't notice it too much on the stream, but in person, the booster gold leaps off the page for it. Thank you. Yes, you can't. That's one of the reasons I do it. It really does help the image pop. And is that what you're pointing at?
Yes.
And sadly, you can't really see it that great on here. Yeah, there you go. You kind of get an idea. It kind of helps. but it does really help as an original piece of art. Okay, I'm going to go in and just
Thanks, Johnny.
mess a little around with the. Thank you, Johnny. With the highlights, drop a few highlights in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nothing has the pencil. I've just decided to put a little shadow in here on his mask lenses. Okay, so we'll go in here with this, and although there is some white highlights throughout here, this is the white chalk pencil, though. It's not a regular pencil because a regular colored pencil wouldn't really, it's not opaque enough, and just a regular colored pencil to do this. But the white chalk pencil does. It's heavy enough and opaque enough that it will do that quite well. So we just drop some highlights in. I already left that open.
So how do you know where to put them?
I don't. Just kind of go with what kind of looks good.
I just feel it.
Well, I mean, there's some truth to that. I mean, it's
the white pencil time. That's right, John.
It is sort of incumbent on where your light source is from, and it's kind of coming this way. So I'm going to have some white edges, depending on how reflective his costume is, and we're going to pretend that it's really reflective.
I'm going to break up the light where it overlaps a little bit.
It's true. See, and I can go in like that and just kind of get some separation.
The math teacher knows a little bit.
Not
a lot, but a little bit.
A little bit. Years of experience. It's finally paying off for you.
Yep. Going pro next year.
All right, so you can have a little fun with that.
That's great, hon.
All right, thank you. I think we've completed our Spider-Man for Adam Garland and Lilith.
Yay, Lilith.
Let's see if we can take a closer
look. What? I want to see.
I just want to get sure that make sure that I'm kind of flush to the camera so it's not at a weird angle. So you can kind of see how that looks. He looks a little shiny, which I guess he should.
Shiny Spidey.
And you can see the highlights there from the pencil in there, which is kind of fun. So there you go. That actually turned out pretty well. And so one of the more challenging pieces I do, which is Spider-Man, I'm always worried about, but I'm liking how this came out. Adam, I hope you are too. If you like it on here, you'll really like it in person because it looks a lot better in person.
It's the red is darker.
Yeah, the red is darker and more red. It's orange. Okay.
So Adam, do you only have Lilith or do you have more kids?
Okay, that's it. I'm going to stop. And I guess we'll sign right over here.
Awesome piece, babe.
Oh, yes, it's going out Tuesday, provided I can find enough cardboard. Okay, again, there we are. So let's. I gotta unplug this now.
Yeah. Oh, Adam, you're like professional namer.
Grayson Drake. Garland, my son.
Nice. Kids are awesome.
Okay. All right, so we did this, and I want to do a reminder here before we tune out that this Raw Imagination, 20 years of sketches by me.
You're old.
I know, and I was old 20 years ago. And it's a hardcover, 64 pages of goodness. And there's a sketch I did for Eric Bennett in there of his character. You can get one of these with a sketch in them for $45 or $25 without a sketch. It ships for free this weekend only, so you can message me or email me. I know, I already told him. Tell some again. And
thank your wife.
There's my wife.
Smart man. Oh, 2 Robin names.
Okay, the sketchbooks. And here's all
There
my
we go.
contact information on my scroll there. I'll give you a quick look through that. Look at that. I actually did an oil painting of this, and it really sucked. But the pencil drawing is awesome, and that's why it's in the book.
That's why it's in the book.
Look at some dinosaurs with cave girls and cave dudes.
Chicks.
Werewolf of London with Henry Hull. Karloff is Frankenstein. Karloff is the mummy down here. A girl in the woods with a big werewolf. I mean, that's quality. Little John Carter. There's a lot of John Carter stuff here, by the way. That turned into a painting, which is hanging on my wall. It actually turned out really well, unlike the other one, which sucked. This one actually turned out well.
That's our Joshua.
When he was little, yes.
That's our Josh, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's based on him.
Yeah.
His hair never had that much body in
No,
it.
yeah. That hair.
Anyway, so there's just a lot of, there's the pencil drawing to what was on the cover, trolls and elves and Star Wars people and cave women, because that's how they really looked back in the day when they were hunting for pterodactyl. There's some John Carter, and there's another of my creator-owned concepts that never made it past this book. So it's just full of good quality family entertainment. So get one if you can this weekend only. You can email me, you can message me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Mr. Social Media.
And I have my own YouTube channel if you haven't figured it out, because that's pretty much what you're watching right now. And so you want to check that out as well. Drake, okay, I don't know what that means. Okay, so I'm going to do this.
Oh, I better move them because you don't want me in there.
Look at that. See, that's a white highlight right on my bald head. If I had the pencil, I would have put that in there.
Wait, let me.
Get the pencil and there. You can draw it in.
Okay. Like right.
There it is. See, just right in there, and you get.
He's
look at
so
that.
shiny.
Look at that.
He's so shiny.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. Okay. So anyway, hey, thanks everybody for stopping by. This was Aaron Con 2, Day 2, the WonderCon edition. I don't know when I'll be back for another con, virtual con, but probably in May. At least I'll be doing, if not a con, a live feed, which is essentially the same thing as this. So we just don't call it a con. We call it Aaron Live, which is a totally different show with the exact same content. Although I don't know if Shelley will be here as my co-host to entertain or not.
Depends if I've got my nap in that day.
That's right. So anyway, again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Easter tomorrow to everybody, and happy sequestering, and hopefully we'll all be out and free soon, wreaking havoc on the world.
Go wash your hands.
That's right. I'm going to go wash my hands after drawing because there's Corona all over this. So anyway, again, thanks guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, John. Bye, Lilith.
Bye, Lilith. You're still on the air, by the way. They can hear us.
Awesome.